Wall Street Unplugged looks beyond the regular headlines heard on mainstream financial media to bring you unscripted interviews and breaking commentary direct from Wall Street right to you on Main Street.
That's going out there on September 20th. I'm Frank Curzio. It's the Wall Street Unplugged podcast, where we break down headlines and tell you what's really moving these markets. I had a good friend come to visit me this week. He's from New York. Known for like 30 years. He used to come here every year, but he didn't come here last year. So he flew in on Friday, and he left earlier today. We always have a lot of fun, do a lot of things, watch football. We used to go to the Jacksonville game. We're going to go to the Chiefs-Jags game. Glad we decided not to. I don't know if you saw. I think the temperature on the field was like over 110 degrees, but we actually got there. And for years, I used to have a great connection to Everbank Field. It's now TIA Field. And we actually walked out the team onto the field one year. Another time we got really great seats. You normally get great seats. And then last year, or 2 years ago, we decided, let's just get the two cheapest seats. They had this place called the Bud Light Zone. We hang out there. Or the Bud Zone, not Bud Light. Can't say Bud, but it's the Bud Zone. And we'll stay there for, 2-3 quarters. The game's good. We'll stay the whole time and everything. So we were going to do that, but we got to the stadium, and I was looking to scout tickets and just buy tickets, whatever, even on a site last minute. They were pretty expensive, like $89 each, which is really, 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 really expensive for Jacksonville, even though they're playing the Chiefs. It was a good game, but usually those tickets will go for $40, the worst seats. New Yorkers and maybe, people in Boston are laughing when they say those prices, but it was so hot. It was unbelievable. I'm like, there's nobody that's going to be sitting in the stadium. Everyone's going to be there. So we're like, let's just get out of here. And went to a bar, and man, it was the best decision ever because, one, it was the worst game. I mean, Jacksonville, like Lawrence, just, I won't say he chokes, but he doesn't really do that well. He's just inconsistent, but no touchdowns. I think they had 12, whatever. It was definitely worth it because that stadium, people don't realize how hot it is. And that stadium in Jacksonville, holy cow. But definitely a really, really good decision. And I spent a lot of time, right? So he came here Friday, and I worked from home Monday and Tuesday. Got a lot of stuff done because, that office like an hour away. So basically home for like 5 straight days with the family, a friend. And I have to tell you, I hear from so many young people in their late 30s, early 40s who are successful, have good jobs, and just bought a house, and you're doing well. And they talk about retiring and say, hey, I want to retire by 45, 50 years old. For me, I had kids late in life. So I'm 51, and my daughters are, one of them's 12, is going to be 13 next week, teenager. Going to have a great party for her next week. And the other one's 15, right? So they're still in the house and not driving yet, although my 15-year-old has a permit, and she's actually a good driver, thank God. And my wife did mention retirement over the past few years, right? And that's a conversation that I think most husbands and wives have around my age. And she's like, hey, when are you going to retire since you'll work a lot? And she says, I can't wait for you to retire. You're going to be home and this and that. She says, and I've come to realize that what my wife says and what she wants is two totally different things. Because if I happen to retire now, which I'm not, I love what I do, my wife would literally kill me. And when you look at most wives, especially if they're taking care of the kids and they're going to school, in my situation, where the kids are still in the house, their whole entire day is a routine. And when you're home, you ruin that routine, which means you get yelled at a lot. I mean, you can just be in the wrong room at the wrong time. I'm sitting there waiting for them to get ready in the living room. And my wife's like, what are you doing in the living room? They got books everywhere. Don't you? Like it's just like this perfect routine that they're used to. And when you inject yourself in it, it's like you're dead. So just get the F out of the room. Go inside. I'm like, I'm just sitting here, right? And it doesn't matter. You could be doing whatever. Well, the best is, I'm like, hey, you want me to make breakfast for the kids? She's like, no, I already ordered Starbucks, and I'm going to go 1 mile out of my way to get it and pick up their food, but I can't eat since I'm driving. Then I'm going to hit more traffic. And when I get home, I have like another 10 things to do, and the laundry, and I got to make some calls. And before you know it, I got to go pick up the kids again. It's like this massive list of shit she does every day that she never gets tired of telling me about. And God forbid, like, I provide a way to make her routine easier, I'm dead, right? I've learned this. You never ever try to figure out a woman's problems, right? You just want to listen. I mean, they don't want a solution, right? If it makes her routine much, much, much easier, it doesn't matter, right? Don't even bother telling her. because it's going to piss her off even more. What she wants to do is she wants a vent. So long story short here, I'm not retiring anytime soon. My wife definitely doesn't want me to retire. Maybe after the kids go to college, then we'll have more time together. But I know how busy she is and her routine is. And yes, I'm making fun of her, but it's listen, with my routine as well. If someone's sitting in and they're just in the way, it's a problem. But it's funny. He's like, oh, you're going to retire. When you have kids in the house still and there's a lot of things going on and you're working and stuff like that, your wife's taking care of her and she's also working, taking care of the kids, man, she does not want you around the house, which is awesome. And last thing here, I'm just happy to be back in the saddle working. Researching the markets, having fun, which, if you haven't heard, since I mentioned this on Every 2 Minutes on CNBC today, the 10-year is at 4.35%, its highest level in 15 years. So rates are ramping higher into today's Fed meeting, which you're going to know about afterwards. But it may surprise you that rates are rising. Consider the Fed, there's a 100%, 99.9% chance they're not going to do anything today, right? They're going to leave rates unchanged. Yes, there'll be commentary and stuff like that, like there always is, and that's what will move the markets. But there's a 0% chance because that's how Powell runs his operation and makes sure there's no surprises, and they put that out to the media, so there's 0 chance, right? I hope it changes this way. I could say tomorrow, Wall Street Unplugged Premium, I was wrong, but there's a 0 chance, right? So they're not going to do anything, but rates are rising sharply. And you may be asking, look, why is it rising so much? Even though the Fed's not expected to raise rates at this meeting. And people say, well, there might be a shot that they raise in the next meeting. Well, there's a few reasons. First is the latest inflationary data was horrible. I mean, CPI, PPI, they showed inflation no longer moderating. It's actually starting to go up again. You're looking at oil prices surging. I mean, I read articles today being floated out there in the media, liberal media, just saying that we really don't need the Strategic Petroleum Reserve anymore. That was back in the past. Of course, you're saying that, right? Because they can't replace it. They're supposed to do it, and they're not doing it, which is funny. But we don't need it anymore. That was different, back in the day, in times of war and stuff like that. But we don't need it. Suddenly, we don't need it anymore, right? So get used to that we're not going to replenish that. Which is going to piss off the Saudis even more, right? Because we lied to them, lied to one of our partners. Also, they're rising due to what's coming down the pipeline. And what is that? So this quarter and next quarter, right? So the rest of this year, the U.S. is about to issue a record $1.9 trillion in U.S. Treasuries. Record for that time frame. Which is going to be used to fund our massive deficits and spending. So mass supply of treasuries being issued that's driving bond prices lower and yields move inversely, which they're moving higher. Now, we need to look at the bigger picture here, which I feel like is not being talked about. Over the past 15 years, pretty much since the credit crisis, economic growth has been fueled by 0% interest rates. And we're looking at a 50-year decline in a 10-year, right? This is the 10-year. So we're looking at a 10-year, which was yielding 0.5% less than 3 years ago and is now at 4.3%. So now it's going to fuel our economy. Low interest rates was huge, and everything basically feeds off the 10-year, which we know. Now, if you're looking at what's going to fuel economic growth, and we have much higher interest rate, it's not going to be the other global economies, right? China's a disaster, which we let you know for that for over a year now, saying how terrible it was. Now it's just being reported how terrible it is. Europe is barely growing, right? They're terrible. Mexico, Africa, South America, no way. And I'm sure you don't see this being mentioned often. I think Bloomberg actually finally wrote a story about this. Global debt just hit a record. And take a guess on what that number might be. Global debt. Okay? Think of that number in your head. It's $310 trillion. Not too sure what comes after trillion. $310 trillion. That's up $100 trillion in the past decade alone. Numbers kind of matter. They matter eventually. They matter to Disney. They matter to Ford. They matter to GM. They matter to these companies when people are like, oh, EVs are going to be great and streaming is going to be great. Numbers eventually matter. Okay, you could fuel like a story and get hyped up and everybody gets excited like we did with SPACs and, the Wall Street loved it and pumped that shit right to every investor and wrecked you guys, right? And made a fortune. That's what they do. But eventually the numbers matter. The numbers matter. These are businesses. But this is the government. So people think numbers don't matter. So when we look at global debt to GDP, right? So look at $310 trillion debt. right? Again, up $100 trillion in the past decade alone. So global debt to GDP. Remember, countries who hit more than 100% of GDP, it's usually like a red flag. The U.S. is now at 110%. The U.K. is at 100%. Spain's at 102%. Portugal's at 118%. Greece at 192%. China, which is interesting, nobody knows. And it's funny because on the International Monetary Fund site, okay, this site exists, right, to list all the countries, their debt to GDP ratio. And when you go to all the countries, it says a percentage. For China, it actually says this. It says no data. It says no data. We don't know what's going on in China because they don't report it, right? So we have no idea. But the global debt to GDP stands at 335%. And the number is expected to rise substantially. Why? We're looking at demand for debt is going to be much higher going forward. Since consumers are businesses, they need to try to keep up with inflation and higher prices. You have the massive global climate change agenda where governments are spending trillions on alternative energy, but nobody cares if these initiatives actually work. Because if we looked and we monitor, we might be able to cut costs. You can't say you want to do that, otherwise you're anti-climate change. And you know, again, you get shut off from everything. And little community hates you, your business, you lose everything. You lose your life, right? Just if you question and say, do we really need to spend trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars? Could we save it? Can't question it, right? Not allowed to. And Ford and GM are still planning to spend $85 billion over the next 3 years to build cars, EVs, that they'll never make a profit on. And more than half the country says they don't want to buy. You wonder why the UAW is striking right now. There it is. Keep the $85 billion. Don't make it on cars you can't compete with Tesla and Rivian with. They know it. They don't have a choice. If they do, what's going to happen with government? And who knows? But you have to follow the agenda. $85 billion over the next 3 years to build cars that they're not going to make money on. $85 billion. Imagine being a shareholder of those companies. It's got to be a lot of fun. Imagine spending $85 billion into making the things that they know they could sell. Gas vehicles that they do a great job doing. I just got my Lincoln fixed after 1 year, which is new, and I went there. They had an EV charging, and I asked the guy, so, what do you see in EVs? He's like, nothing. He's like, none of our customers want EVs. It's like, they don't like them. I'm not saying there's not a market for them. I'm not saying that people shouldn't use them. I agree with them. I think Rivian's awesome. I may buy Rivian, probably not, because I like to drive it. I don't feel like charging things every 30 minutes. I drive a lot. But there's definitely a market for it. But the whole market, the massive demand that you thought you were going to see, it's going to take over everything to mandate it in California? You out of your mind? Mandated in California for EVs? You don't have the grid in place. Better hope your grandma doesn't have a stroke or something. I mean, what are you going to do if the grid's down? How are you going to get her there? I don't know. Hopefully she doesn't weigh that much. You can carry her 20 blocks to a hospital. Hopefully it's in 20 blocks. I don't know. They don't care about that. Nobody cares. Just mandate it. Then you have the massive infrastructure bills, right? Just showing you about this debt and how it's going to go higher and higher. Trillions of more spending, more initiatives from our government that doesn't have any checks and balances. I mean, seriously, have water pipes been replaced? Bridges been fixed? I mean, Biden's bill passed 2 years ago, his infrastructure bill, right? 1.2 infrastructure bill. There is still $650 billion in past funding that has yet to be allocated toward new infrastructure. And he's putting out of this $1.2 trillion, this is an infrastructure bill, by the way, only $550 billion of that money. But combined with the $650 billion, it seems like it's more. But this is past funding. I actually looked to see where that past funding, something was passed in 2015. It was $300 billion. I don't even know. You can't even find it. They won't list it, especially if you go to Google. They're not going to list that. Everything's Biden passed, Biden passed, Biden passed. Getting a liberal agenda. You get it. But the $550 billion in new money from Biden's infrastructure bill includes $65 billion to equip all Americans with internet. Who doesn't have internet in America? You have a cell phone? I mean, give that job to me. I could do it for less than $5 billion. I'm sure you could work with the phone companies, T-Mobile, Verizon, have them provide the cheapest free phones to people and cheap internet service and write it off as donation or whatever and whatever. $65 billion? Like, people really don't have access to the internet? What am I missing? I've been a lot of places, and I know some areas are not as good as other areas, but really? $65 billion? You look at a lot of the infrastructure bill, most of it, expected to go roads, bridges, energy, power grids, public transit, $15 billion again for EVs and clean energy. There's going to be no accountability. I mean, it's just money being spent. It's like $75 billion in financial aid, right? Which is weapons. They say financial aid and all this stuff. It's weapons we sent to Ukraine to fight Russia. $75 billion. Do you know what this number started at? It started at $2 billion when they first said they were going to war. Was it February 2022? If you look at $75 billion, it includes, and I read it at the beginning, 80 Stingers, light anti-armor weapons, unmanned drones, grenade launchers, massive amounts of ammunition, 25,000 helmets, body armor, shotguns, machine guns, military. They listed all this stuff. And what else you want? A couple couches to hang out, free food. What else you want to... I mean, did you ever see Lord of War with Nicolas Cage? I mean, it's based on Victor Bat, one of the biggest arms smugglers in the world. Arms dealing is the most corrupt industry in the world. There's no accountability there. You don't know if they're using this stuff. We're actually seeing them use these weapons? Does Ukraine need this much support from America, given there's 30 other members of NATO, which are all supporting this war? All right, even though Ukraine's not in NATO and will never be, because they're listed as one of the most corrupt nations in the world pre-war, now everybody loves them. Just telling you the truth here. But aren't those other 30 members, like, what are they doing? Are they providing $80 billion that we've given? And we just keep going. Another billion. It was $2 billion went to 75. It's unlimited. No account. We don't even know what's going on. You see how many accounting errors there have been? Oh, we made a rounding error of $2-3 billion. Again, more than the original amount you're supposed to give them. Where's the rest of the NATO members? Are they giving them money? Nah, not nearly as much as we're giving them, but keep funding it. This all has to do with global debt, whether you agree with this shit or not. Global debt's not going down anytime soon. And by the way, some more interesting data that you don't see reported. At least I don't. I have to dig for a lot of this stuff. But S&P reports that 35% of this debt is floating, meaning it's interest rate sensitive or sensitive to the fastest increase in interest rates we've seen in the Fed era. And since low rates funded this boom, what do you think higher rates are going to do to the world economy? And we're looking at 18 months, an increase in rates, 18 months. We're looking at paying or servicing this debt that we had was a couple of $100 billion to service the debt. And now, after 18 months of increases and also spending, the amount of spending that we continue to see from our government, we're looking at $4 trillion, close to $4 trillion in interest payments alone. Again, servicing the debt, interest payments alone. $4 trillion just because a rate went from one place to another. That's it. It's not like you added like $4 trillion in expenses and you have more employees for a business or you had an acquisition. This is just extra money, profit and loss. There you go. Boom. Interest expense. $4 trillion on the amount of global debt. $4 trillion you have to come up with. And I think that's an insane number, but I guess numbers don't really mean anything anymore. Nobody cares what the S&P is trading at. It's trading at 20. Why should it be trading at 20 times earnings today when it was trading at 20 times earnings in 2019? And yet earnings aren't growing. Oh, well, they're expected to grow by next year by 12%. Expected. We had 3 straight quarters of negative GDP growth. Negative earnings growth. Think about that for a minute. How crazy is that? Think about a debt that we continue to accumulate. And what's driving this growth is more and more government spending. But apparently, people think, hey, it's not going to matter. You keep spending $4 trillion interest payments. Let's see. Because we're seeing the housing market really start to collapse. Demand falling off a cliff. Nobody's really buying houses anymore unless you're paying cash. Can't afford it. Have you seen the amount of retailers? Daniel and I read off that list of retailers, and it wasn't like 7 or 8. There was like 3-4 dozen, every one of them, talking about how terrible it is for the consumers, and it's much worse than we thought it was going to be. This is not a one-time thing, guys. When you raise interest rates, it's not like you're taking a write-off or you're like, okay, this is going to turn around. This is a long drag that's going to get worse and worse for a very long time. And now we're seeing what? What's going to happen when the government continues to spend money, you're seeing inflation go back up. So I don't know what they're going to say today. But they're definitely not going to say that they're not raising rates in the future, or that's off the table. Which, by the way, you should be very nervous about. And we've all, this bull market, right? I mean, everybody's calling this bull market, saying it's going to go high, it's going to, because rates, they're going to stop raising rates. Well, they haven't stopped raising rates and the market went higher. So what's going to happen when they do stop raising rates? When they stop raising rates and they pause, the reason why they would do that is because the economy is slowing and they see risks. And then when they start lowering, that's a sign that the economy is doing terrible. Think about 2000, during the dot-com market, when they started lowering through 2000, 2001, 2002, 2003, market crashed. Think about the credit crisis. Market didn't crash when they were raising rates. The market started crashing when they were lowering rates. That's what they started doing, 2008, 2009. And then, surprisingly, in 2010, they were supposed to say, okay, let's get those rates back up again. And they kept them at zero forever and said, wow, this is awesome. This is great. Let's enjoy this. Well, now look where we are now. Because every economist, every market analyst that's been in this industry, I don't care if you've been in it for 30, you throw out every textbook, throw out everything. Like, historical means shit right now. We've never been in the market like this. How many people you see, even like really people that you follow on Twitter, social media, in the markets, that say, this is the first time I've seen this. This is even me. This is the first time I've ever seen this in 30 years. I mean, this really is. We're in uncharted territory, which means you have a huge added amount of risk that you can't foresee. So if you're in this market, I know it's punishing you to sometimes be out of this market, especially when you have 7 stocks really driving the whole thing higher. That makes it incredibly dangerous. So again, I guess numbers don't mean anything anymore. When our government believes they can continue to fund growth forever, I think it's a dangerous game to play. In the meantime, what are you going to do about it? Buy oil. We're not going to fill up strategic oil. We know we're not going to do that, right? Which should actually drive oil prices higher if you do that, right? But it's not going to happen anyway. But you're looking at the Saudis now, we're not drilling as much. We should be drilling like crazy at these prices, but you wonder why oil's going higher? I mean, do you see that stopping anytime soon? Oh, demand is going to fall off a cliff. Well, look at GDP numbers. They're actually going to rise going forward. Seeing China demand, yeah, is really weak. Maybe you could say it's going to be even weaker going forward, but it hasn't really had that impact. How are you going to get oil lower right now? I don't know. Probably going to go a lot higher. Even if it goes down $5, $7, $8 from here, it's still much, much higher. So we say buy oil. You look at a Dollar Stock Club portfolio, right, which is attached to a Wall Street Unplugged premium product subscription. We got X on the portfolio for a while now, up 90%. Thank Daniel for that one. Marathon's up 18%. Helix Energy offshore play up 14% in 2 months. Buy uranium. Uranium portfolio for a while with Global X Uranium ETF up over 30% for us. Cameco, I think we recommended last week. We're already up over 5% on. Just so TPL, Texas Pacific Land Trust, which is a land play, asset play, up 40% in a few months. We have some losers in the portfolio. We have a couple cryptos in the portfolio. That hasn't done that well. But you're looking at a lot of these names, right? We're saying buy gold now. We have some positions, gold in the portfolio. Buy infrastructure, since $1.2 trillion is being allocated to it. And again, if you don't agree with it, or eventually money's going to flow into a lot of this stuff, but play off what the government is doing, whether you agree with it or not, or climate change or whatever. Doesn't matter. The money is going there. You can hold up a sign and protest either way if that's what you want to do. That's not what I do. I like to make money. But if you're looking at those names I mentioned, I mean, investment in any of them will be enough to cover the cost of Wall Street Unplugged premium for 2 or 3 years, since it's only $10 a month to subscribe to that. Wall Street Unplugged, Daniel and I just break down the markets, give you the actual picks to benefit from all the bullshit we see in Washington, on Wall Street, when it comes to SPACs and things like that. Or you listen to every analyst tell you to buy Disney. It's a strong buy at 170. What is it, 80 now? They can't sell ESPN, ABC. They can't sell these properties. So they need to raise a shitload of money to pay for the rest of Hulu, which I think is going to be a disaster. So they can't make money on streaming. But Wall Street Unplugged Premium, probably the best value you can get for any financial product being sold in America. And best of all is we're 100% independent, meaning I don't give a shit who I piss off. I'm going to tell you the truth. Whoever gets offended, too fucking bad. And you know what? I think people want more of that, especially on Wall Street. Almost everything you watch is bullshit now. I mean, you don't even know what the true stories are. You have no idea. All people know is what you tell them. And when you're glued to a certain place, and from someone who actually has boots on the ground that travels to different areas and tries to tell you these stories and then got shut out and had bad reviews. If you look at my reviews, I think, I don't know, it's like 4 point, what is it? I don't even care about stars or whatever for the podcast. We've been doing such a long time. But there was a stretch where when I was talking about fracking and I went there, like people just killed me. These guys, conservative ass. I'm not conservative. I'm telling you the truth. I'm telling you what's going on. That a lot of the bullshit regarding fracking and the earthquakes and it kills animals and oh my God, it's bullshit. Causes water contamination. I mean, think about that. Telling you the truth gets you kicked off sites. Places like YouTube, Facebook. I mean, YouTube just suspended Russell Brand. You know, left is pushing out news that he suddenly, all he's been around forever. So he raped and sexually assaulted women, right? Allegedly. Good timing considering what is he doing out there? If you watch all his videos, some Bill Maher, all these plays attacking big pharma companies, what Tucker did. Attacking the BS COVID agenda by Washington, the national media companies. I mean, how convenient that you're suspending him for allegations? Not because he's found guilty, but for allegations. Amazing world we live in. I'm not a big fan of Russell Brand either. I'm just saying it's amazing. I mean, you could hate what someone's saying, but you have the right to say it. It's free speech. And I hate what a lot of people say sometimes, but again, I would never vote to kick them off of anything because you have the right to say whatever you want. Now you get kicked off of sites. What do you have, 6 million people? And YouTube, the biggest liberal company by far in America, kicked them off. These allegations. They don't even care if they're true or not. Just convenient they happen when he's really has this massive platform now. Anyway, comes to Wall Street Unplugged Premium, Curzio Research. I'm not going to follow the bullshit agenda of the media. I'm going to be forced to be put in line. I'm too old for that. And for me, the way I was brought up by my dad, my family, credibility, reputation is more important than how much money you make. You can always look yourself in the mirror, right? You can run out of money, but you look at yourself in the mirror and be proud. That's what your kids are going to look at. That's why I have so many listeners to this podcast, because we tell it how it is. And people want that. Even if they disagree, they want it. They want it. Okay, I could deal with this. I mean, I don't agree with what everybody says. Nobody does. But man, you want it to be based on truth. You want to be able to look at a video and see something happening and be like, holy shit, that guy should go to jail, and he doesn't go to jail. It's you know, we all seen this. How do these people see things differently? It's a political agenda. It's crazy. But again, it's why we have lots of listeners to this podcast for a very long time, doing this for a long time. We tell the truth by the best analysts on Wall Street, including ideas you're not going to hear in mainstream media because we cover so many industries. And try our best to make regular folks a lot of money, which we've done. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing this. People wouldn't be paying for my services otherwise. Anyway, mini rant there. But how about them Eagles? Actually, how about the NFC East? 7 wins, 1 loss? Remember that division was like the laughingstock of the NFL? Even Washington looks good. Great defense. Howell may be the most underrated, you say underrated quarterback, underrated player in the NFL. Knew how good he was. Washington to go off the quarterback. He played the last game of the season, won that last game, big game. He looks sharp, looks good. Looks really good. Washington's for real. Maybe 2 kind of easy teams, but let's see. Giants, big comeback win. Going to be playing Thursday against San Francisco. You see if they're real or not, if that was just luck with the comeback. But pretty good stuff. Love the NFL. Love what's going on. Enjoying life. So guys, questions, comments, feel free to email frankcurzioresearch.com. That's it for me. If you're interested in learning more about Wall Street Unplugged Premium, you can go to curzioresearch.com. You can subscribe there, and you'll get a chance to listen to me and Daniel on tomorrow's show, which we do every Thursday. I'm going to recommend another stock pick for you like we do every week in our Dollar Stock Club portfolio, which is free along with your membership to Wall Street Unplugged Premium. Also happy to say we are making great progress with our app, which is close to being launched. Just working out the tweaks and stuff like that. Now, you guys wanted it. It takes a little while to do some of this stuff. Want to be able to launch it where you can listen to it, get ideas from you guys, and then we'll build it out more and more and more. So that's going to be really cool for Wall Street Journal Premium. So anyone can listen to it, anyone's a subscriber. But we'll keep you guys updated on that. And I'll see you guys tomorrow, Wall Street Journal Premium. Take care.